And people are usually like shocked. Like, your first date, she asked you what your credit score was?
Mm-hmm. I asked him, not because if he just said it's 510, I'd have been like,
pack this up, I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was nice. That's what I asked for.
Yeah.
How are we going to move depending upon where your credit score is, where my credit score is? This is how we're going to move over the next year. Is he willing to support you and be a part of this? Or is he just like, go ahead now, you do your thing, mama?
Not everybody is into the same thing, right? Has the same interests.
But you have to learn that early.
For the stability of that.
You just have to make sure you are on the same team.
Hey, business owners, what if I helped you get access to $50,000 in business funding for $1 a day? Would you be interested? Well, inside of my Credit Mastery community, you're going to be getting exclusive access to our in-depth training program that's worth tens of thousands of dollars to give you the exact strategies you need on how to restore your credit and on how to properly structure your business. You're also going to be getting access to a financial consultant with over a decade of experience in the funding space that'll help you reach your financial goals in half the time it would take if you were to do it on your own. And we're going to be giving you 2 coaching calls every week that'll give you the exact banks you need to go to get access to $50,000 to $100,000 in business funding. This is the same community that helped Pat get access to $50,000 in funding from Chase, helped Alvin get access to $8,000 in funding from Amex, helped Matt boost his personal credit score by 150 points, and helped Donna delete a bankruptcy from her credit report. So if you're interested, click the link above or below this video to join now, and we'll see you on the other side of success. Let's go, family.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Marvin Francois Show, your #1 source for all things business, finance, and investing. And today is a very special day because our guests today are entrepreneurs, investors, mentors, keynote speakers, TV personalities, parents, a married couple, and real estate legacy builders extraordinaire. Since 2018, they flipped over 100 properties and built a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio, proving that they didn't just follow the blueprint, they became it. Whether they're starring on their hit TV show 50/50 Flip, investing $50,000 into homes to renovate them in 50 days or less, or speaking on stages all across the country, educating communities on how to make success in real estate inevitable, their mission remains the same: to empower individuals to build and sustain generational wealth through mentorship, education, and action. And today, they're here to do more of the same. Ladies and gentlemen, from North Carolina, I'm here with the one, the only, Mr. and Mrs. Dedric and Crystal Polite. How are you guys?
Fantastic, man.
Thank you.
If we were doing any better, it'd be a crime.
I love it. I love it.
I didn't even know we was doing all that till he.
That was a great intro.
You know, listen, when you have royalty,
I forgot.
When you have royalty coming, you got to roll out the red carpet. You got to set you guys up nice. So yeah, of course.
Thank you.
But no, 100%. How are you guys? How's everything?
Excellent, man. Glad to be here in Brooklyn. BK.
I know it's been a while since we've been here.
Yeah. Before off camera, we were having a conversation. You guys were talking about, like, North Carolina is much better. I was just like, well, let's see.
Trying to get them down.
We tell everybody that.
Yeah. But either way, you're here. I'm very blessed and thankful to have you. I know it's been a long time coming. I love talking real estate with individuals like yourself, just because people who follow my platform love it. And you guys have a very interesting twist about it, because you're the first guest I think I've had on that is a married couple that's doing real estate together, but also doing it on television as well. So we have a lot to discuss. We got a lot to discuss, and I'm looking forward to it. Before we get there, of course, I want to start with, of course, unpacking the both of your individual stories and kind of how we got to this point, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of steps in your journey, Crystal, and your journey, Dedric, that would be great for the audience to know. For starters, who exactly is, and Dedric, I'll start with you, Dedric Polite.
I grew up in a small town in South Carolina. Both my parents are from South Carolina. Moved up to Boston in the 80s. Grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. I just did what my parents told me to do. They told me to go to school, get good grades, go out and get a good job with benefits, don't mess up that job. And that's what I did after graduating college. And then I found out that I wasn't a good employee, right? I didn't like working for someone else. I did sales and pretty much hated it. And I always had a side hustle. But I was more of a entrepreneur for many years.
Yeah.
Grew up in the inner city of Boston and grew up on Section 8 housing. So, I've definitely been through some struggles. But it wasn't until I met Crystal, she was more of a serial entrepreneur. So she was the one who kind of gave me the push to say, you know what, you're bigger than this, you're greater than this, you should go for it. And we jumped into entrepreneurship.
I love it. To unpack that a little bit more, going back to your upbringing in Boston, you talked about growing up in Section 8 housing. What was life for you like around that point in time?
Yeah, in the 90s in Roxbury, shout out to New Edition. That's where they from. It was rough. A lot of drugs, a lot of violence, a lot of gangs. I seen friends of mine, get shot, get killed, still have some lingering PTSD from that. But, it was an interesting time to be alive. And I remember getting evicted one time. So, being in Brooklyn, being in New York, it gives me that same energy as Roxbury, right? It's like you got to be strong to make it out of a place like this and like that. But luckily, I had a mom who was committed. She, preached education to me, and was able to make it out of there.
I love it. And fast forwarding now to when you were in college, you were pursuing a degree, but were there any things that were happening? Because I believe you said you kind of dabbled and dabbled in sales. Were there any things happening when you were in college that kind of introduced you to the world of entrepreneurship and financial literacy? Could you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely, yeah. Graduated from Amherst College. I was on the football team, but I had a full academic scholarship, so I wasn't there for sports. And I majored in sociology. Okay. Why? Because that was the easiest classes. I stayed far away from science and math. Okay. But when I looked up in what sociologists and teachers made, $38,000 a year, it just wasn't going to cut it for me. So I said, I need to do something else. So I stumbled upon sales. My sophomore summer, I got an internship doing selling Cutco knives. And I sucked at it at first. I was horrible. They were about to fire me until I made my one sale. And that gave me the confidence. Yeah. And I went on to be the #1 sales rep in Boston. They wanted me to open my own office for Cutco Vector. I ended up going into pharmaceutical sales, but I've been doing sales ever since. So that's how I kind of find my calling.
Okay. Similar question for you, Crystal. Before the real estate empire and the television show and even marriage, what did life for you look like in the early years?
In the early years. So I am originally from North Carolina. So where we actually live now is where my family is from, which is how we ended up back there. But my mother moved. I'm a product of a single parent household. So my mother moved in about 88, I think it was, moved us all to Boston. Her sister, my aunt, lived there. And she had no family, didn't grow up with my mother and her other siblings. So she just asked my mother on a whim, like, hey, I have no family. Could you move here? So my mother was like, it's not really much in North Carolina for me and my family. So she literally uprooted us, moved us from North Carolina to Boston. She said, hey, if you guys don't like it after a year, we'll move. We went kicking and screaming. We didn't want to go. We got there. And after that year came, we was like, no, we don't want to move. We don't go. But she asked us. And it was a huge culture shock. Now, we're coming from the South. So, of course, you have this thick accent at the time. My accent, Southern drawl, was super strong. Might as well have been
from Haiti or somewhere.
Right. I remember people always telling me to say stuff over and over again so they can hear it. And early on, though, my mother said since as early as 4 or 5, she can remember me always saying, when people ask me, what am I going to do when I grow up? I said, I'm going to be an attorney. I'm going to own my own law firm. And then I'm going to hire homeless people and train them to work for me. That was my goal in life for the longest, all the way until really I got into college. So I grew up wanting to be an attorney my entire life. I also grew up being a dancer. As well. So from Boston, I grew up being a professional dancer where me and my dance partners would dance behind singers and performers.
Okay. You can drop some of the names in the 90s who you dance behind.
Why I got to be the 90s? Why you got to tell my age without telling my age?
DMX.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Biggie.
Thank you.
She danced behind.
Thank you. Without telling my age. Okay.
This is when the married couple side
comes out. You know what I'm saying?
You look gorgeous.
This is when the married couple side comes out.
You know what I'm saying? Like, without telling my age. Okay, thank you. I love
early
the support.
2000s.
But that's what I grew up doing. So I also love dance. But people be like, oh, you don't want to open up a dance school. I said, no, you don't make no money having no dance school. I love teaching people how to dance. Absolutely love it. Not enough for me to want to have a school.
Yeah.
I said I'm going to be an attorney. It wasn't until I got to college, and my mother is the epitome of alpha. Very strong woman, which is where I get it from. 4 kids. When we moved to Massachusetts, she was making $5.50 an hour in 88, working as a bank teller. And it wasn't until I went to college that I had created, directed, and produced my own stage play. And that was my freshman year, and fell in love with that. And took it on tour. Now, I was a freshman, so of course I didn't know what I was doing. So got robbed blind by a business partner of mine. But it killed my dreams, but it didn't kill my spirit. So I knew at the time I was crushed. I was like, I'm not doing this. But it didn't kill my spirit. I knew at that point entrepreneurship was the way for me. And I didn't want to do law anymore. So I took that. By the time, fast forward, I was in college. I did the stage play. I came out. At that point, it wasn't, like most college students, you party hard. That I was in New York probably more than you.
Party
and
harder.
you lived here, okay? So, and I was probably here more than you.
Yeah.
But after college, I knew from there, I started a nonprofit. At that point in Boston, I was trying to get a nightclub opened. And I saw all the red tape that was there. So for me, life has always been about entrepreneurship and owning my own business. And by the time I got into my mid-20s, I had epiphanies where I woke up one day and I said, I can't continue to do what I'm doing. And it was probably about 23, 24. And cut everyone off. Only one who could reach me at that time was my mother. I locked in, went back to church, and went full steam ahead on entrepreneurship and just learning. Thank God I had a mother who said, listen, when you get out of college, come back home and live with me until you can figure it out. While your headaches are my headaches, your worries are my worries. Meaning I didn't have to worry about paying the bills and things of that nature. And people don't understand how that can really set a young child up, not having to come out of school with all that extra debt and then try and figuring out where you live in. So for me, she was the individual who helped me, of course, get to where I'm at, because without that, I wouldn't have been able to continue to start, fail so many different things.
Give you that safety net.
Complete safety net. And then I ended up meeting my husband. And that's where we are.
Okay. So this is good. So Dedric, on your end, you go to school for sociology. Things don't really, the sociology ain't sociologing.
No interest. No interest.
There's no interest at all. But you stumble in the Cutco space and you start kind of getting your feet wet in the world of sales. Crystal, on your end, you make it into college, have a sour experience with, being in the drama space, finish college, and you're finding your footing in this space of entrepreneurship, right? You both are navigating your own individual paths. Now, the golden question I'm sure you guys get all the time, how does this now all come together? How did you guys actually meet?
So we met on Hyde Park Ave. I pulled into a gas station to get some gas. She pulled up. This was like a random gas station no one ever went to. Like we both thought it was a front for a drug operation because they never had fuel. No one ever went there. And I saw her. She saw me. We kind of locked eyes, and I thought she was beautiful, so I approached her. I gave her my business card. Now, she did have sunglasses on, so I asked her to take her sunglasses off because I wanted to see her eyes. I just want to make sure she didn't have a wandering eye. I was like, everything else is perfect. I just got to make sure the eyes are straight. So
He did.
we exchanged business cards, and that's how we met.
Okay, got you. So you guys meet at a gas station. Was it an instant connection, or did it take a little bit more time to develop into something deeper than that?
It was instant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, as soon as he started talking to me, as soon as he started talking, I'm listening to him, got my shades on, and I was like, because I immediately recognized his voice. Immediately. So it was almost when he started talking to me, I literally had that deja vu. I was like, oh, wow, this is him. I had been dreaming about a guy for probably 10 years, 10, 15 years. I had been dreaming about this same guy. Never saw his face. I knew what his voice looked like. I knew what his body looked like. I knew what his calves looked like, his hands looked like.
Okay.
That's how particular this dude was.
Yeah.
I knew what everything looked like but his face.
Yeah.
Soon as he opened his mouth, I literally went from here to, So when I left, I immediately called my girlfriend. And I was like, wow, you're not going to believe this. And she was like, what? I said, yo, I just met the guy I'm going to marry. She was like, what? I was like, yeah. She was like, I know you lying. I was like, I literally just met the guy I'm going to marry. She's like, what? Wait, where? I said, the gas station. So, of course, that was like, girl.
Yeah.
And I don't drink. I've never drank in my life. I've never smoked in my life. So she was like, okay, so we started drinking. Okay, that's what we do. I said, girl, I'm telling you, this is the guy that I've been dreaming about over 10 years. And I just met him. And in my dreams, I was married to him. So I knew this was him. And for him, what happened? I'm going to let you tell yours.
Oh, no. Okay. So I called one of my best friends at the time. I was like, man, I just met the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And I'm talking her up and everything. And he goes and looks her up on Facebook and sends her a friend request.
Hey, yo. What?
I'm like, yo, that's some shady stuff.
Yeah. I'm like, what you doing?
What kind of friend is that?
Yeah.
But I just met him. So, of course, my Facebook was locked down. And I only accepted friends that I knew. So I hit him. I texted him. I was like, hey, how are you? And I was like, hey, I think your brother sent me a friend request, but I just want to, double check before I accept. And he was like, well, who is it? And I said the name. He was like, do not accept him. What is he doing? I'm so sorry about this. Please don't accept him. I was like, oh, okay, not a problem. I just, wanted to make sure. But we were both in two totally different places in our life, even when we met.
Talk a bit more about that, because in learning more about your story, like you just explained, there was that instant connection. But I actually read, Crystal, on your end, there was something that you did initially to where you didn't just, okay, I like this guy, he likes me, this is the guy I'm going to marry. Let's go ahead and make it happen. There was like a gap that happened there. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yes.
The gap.
It took a gap year.
Year.
I like how you put it. It sounds nice.
Gap.
Because I took a lot of heat for this.
Talk to me.
People hit them comments like, I was like, what in the world? What I did was I recognized early that he was not ready to be in a relationship.
Got you.
And because I could see he wasn't ready to be in a relationship,
and I wasn't. I was 28. I was partying. I was popping bottles. I'm promoting nightclubs. So I was out in the streets. I was not ready to settle down when we first met.
And I was not into turning red lights green.
Come on.
And that's what a lot of women will do that.
Yeah.
Not
right?
all, but a lot.
And I wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
But I knew anything that God has for me will be for me. But I also knew if I rushed him to be where I wanted him to be versus where he was, we were going to crash and burn. And I always tell people, you can lie to your girlfriend, you can lie to your boyfriend, you can lie to your family. Never lie to yourself, right? And for me, I'm never going to lie to me. I knew he wasn't ready. I'm not going to say in my mind, oh, you know what? It's now or never.
Yeah.
And I don't do ultimatums. So I wasn't going to tell him, well, if you want to be with me, you got to be with me right now.
How many times we hear that? That ultimatum.
If we're going to do this, I'm not going to waste no time.
Yeah.
My clock is ticking.
Yeah.
You're 25. What are you talking about?
And when I met him, I was 28.
Okay.
Maybe
28. Yeah.
28. And I told him, I said, he was like, yeah, I want to be with you. And I said, well, not yet. I said, that may be so. I said, but what I need you to do is go off for a year and just live your life. Go off for a year, travel the world. My exact words were sow your royal oats, just like coming to America.
Go sow your royal oats.
I said, go sow your royal oats, travel the world, ride your motorcycle, have fun.
Yeah.
And
you actually
then
said sleep with some women.
Yep.
Oh, well.
I said sleep with other women.
Marvin, I'm looking at her like, nah, you're playing me.
Yeah, I'm like, bro,
you
if you don't want me, just say
that.
Like what are we doing?
Women will say stuff like that, but it's really a test.
Right.
And if you answer wrong, you're done for. Yeah. So I'm like, are you sure about this? But she was really serious. And I was like, are you sure? I had to ask her about 1,000. And then finally she was like, no, you got to go do you for a while. Get that out your system. And that's what I went and did. And then I tried to contact her back, before she was like, go for a year, sow your royal oats. And every three or 4 months I reach out to her and she was like, no, it hasn't been a year yet.
I would just be like, hey, how's it going? Good. Nope.
See you in 7-8 more months.
There you go.
Got you.
See ya. Because I knew him. I knew his type. And I knew he was a great guy, but he needed to get some stuff out of his system.
Yeah.
Because being with me, I'm the type of woman who I'm not going to allow you to play in my face. Right.
And when we met, she asked me, when do you see yourself getting married? And I was 28 at the time. I was like, I'm like 60, 65.
Yes, he did.
60.
No,
Yes, he
legit.
did.
I was being honest.
He said about
at the
60.
time.
Brother, at 60, you're done. It doesn't work.
That should tell you how much playing he was planning to
Yo,
do.
bro, that's
Well,
That's
actually,
what
for the
I should
record,
tell you.
my grandfather, John Henry Wright,
Yes,
shout
he
out to him.
did.
He had a kid at like 62. He was still popping out kids.
Yes, he was.
So the polites don't play. But I didn't really see myself getting married until I met her. And I was like, okay, if there's one woman I could marry, it is her.
Yeah.
But I wasn't ready in my late 20s. I was still had some playing to do.
Got you. Okay. So you prompt the decision to say like, yo, go away, figure it out, and then come back to me after a year.
Yep.
What's happening on your end during that year? Was that actually time that you were able to use to kind of do the inner work on yourself to prepare for what you knew was to come with this relationship, or was something else going on? Can you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, like she said, I just got a motorcycle. I was riding my motorcycle, traveling with my boys, still working my job and doing the 9-to-5 stuff. But I was just really just getting that immaturity, that stuff out of my system that a lot of young men have. Because, typically women mature younger and faster than men. And, some men will get married in their 20s, but I just wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
Then when I came back,
sleeping with girls. I mean, okay,
of course.
okay.
Yeah, he just wanted to say the motorcycle. He said, I was just on my motorcycle. I would go, I wake up,
You see
I
how
go
he
to work,
tried to put that
I ride my
narrative out
motorcycle,
there?
I go to
was just
sleep.
on my motorcycle.
Well, that's a given.
Yeah, but he was doing him. He was doing him.
I was
Okay.
doing my thing. We don't got to go into details on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So
You don't want to go into details on that, but you want to go into details on my age
There
and
you
stuff.
go.
Okay.
She would call me and be like, hey, how was the date you went on last night? And I try to keep it vague. And she's like, no, tell me how it went. Like, no, really? Like, did you hook up with her?
No, first off, he called me. And it was within like a month. And he called me like, hey, I miss you. I really want to be with you. And I said, it has been a month. I said, what's up? And I could see because he kept calling. I would not answer.
Yeah.
And so I picked up and I said, hey, what's going on? I miss you. I really want to see you. I want to be with you. And I said, okay. I said, what have you been up to? He's like, just working. Just working.
Riding
That's
my
all I
motorcycle.
do.
Just riding my motorcycle.
Riding my motorcycle.
Ride my motorcycle.
That's it. And, trying to be with you. I said, so you just been working. That's it. Riding your motorcycle. He's like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I said, okay, you ain't went on no dates? Nah, I haven't been dating at all because I told you I'm trying to be with you.
And this is before Tinder. This is before the dating app. So imagine if the dating apps was
it would have
popping.
been all off. And that's funny because at 6:47 on Hinge, I saw that she was doing that. Yeah.
You was swiping right.
Yeah.
Right. So I told them, I said, so you ain't been dating, you ain't went on no dates? No, I'm just trying to be with you. I said, okay, no dates.
Yeah.
No. I said, well, I've been dating. So he was like, wait, what? What'd you say? I said, well, look, I've been dating. I told you I needed you to go out there and date, live your life for the next year. He was like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, I have been on some dates. I said, okay, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be honest with each other. I said, okay, how was the date? I mean, we just went out to eat, took it to the movies, dropped off,
Cheesecake Factory.
I went home, I said, so you went out to eat, went to the movies, dropped her home. Yeah, I had work, the next day, so.
I had to get up and ride my motorcycle to work the next day.
That's all, that's what I did, I said, okay.
Because do they really want the truth?
Yeah,
we know. Do they really want the truth?
Yeah.
Some women can't handle that, but I met one that she actually could handle the truth. And she really wanted to know.
And I told him, I said, okay. I said, so you didn't smash? Nah, I went home. I had work the next morning. Oh my goodness. I said, okay, so you ain't smashing in these streets. No, I'm really not. I said, okay, so I'm smashing. So you might want to catch up. He was like, wait, what? I said, I told you what I needed you to do. And then he was like, well, yeah, I did smash. I did. I mean, I just don't want you to look at me. I said, babe, listen, when I tell you this is what I need you to do, I'm telling you this for a reason. Now, without in the street smashing and no, I wasn't. But I needed him to understand the importance of us being able to communicate and tell each other the truth.
Yeah.
And when he realized that by him telling me And I made him, he told me, he was like, yeah, okay, I did smash. I did. We had that conversation. Have you ever heard about it again in life?
Nope, never threw it back in my face.
I told him, and when people asked me about it, I said, listen, I didn't really care.
Mm-hmm.
I cared enough to know that he knew he could talk to me about anything, right? Because we're friends.
Right.
And I tell people early on, all of my past relationships, I'm still friends with these guys. Because I build upon the friendship first, the relationship second. So when the relationship ends, our friendship kicks in. It supersedes. Because we were friends before I ever decided to date you.
The foundation has to be friendship.
And that's what I wanted to build with him, is a friendship. So that's why I had made it so that he understood it's comfortable to talk to me about anything. It's not going to be thrown back up in your face. It ain't going to be talked about again. I could care less. Like I told him, if I'm not in the room holding the light, I don't care what you're doing in there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
holding the light is
if I'm not in there
microphone,
holding the
too.
light, then I don't care what you did in the room.
Okay.
I don't ask, how many girls did you sleep with before me? I wasn't in the room. So I don't care. It was before me.
Yeah.
Right? What happens from me on is all I care about. I'm just not that female who's going to hold what you did before. What? You slept with 80
But
girls?
she's different than 99.9% of women. She's just different. And she was raised by her older brother who kind of schooled her that, like, here's how men think, here's how men operate. So she understands it at a different level.
Got you. This is
You thought we were going to talk about business and real estate.
We
This is the real tea right here.
This is
We
the
can just talk
story
about
that
this.
leads into it. We gonna get there. We walking. Okay, so we take the year off,
Yes.
right? Go handle your business. I'm over here handling my business. Let's fast forward now, right? You get to the 1 year mark.
Yep.
You guys finally come back together, I assume. What are those conversations like? Okay, we're back after a year. Are we going straight into talking about money and business?
No,
and
here's what happened.
Talk to me.
So after a year, I start reaching back out to her, reaching out, and she's ghosting me.
Hey.
Not answering my phone calls, not responding to my texts. And I'm driving by her apartment. I see a car out there, right? So now I'm a little stalker, a little stalkerish. And I've never done this before. So go to her house, see a car out there. I'm like calling her phone. So I go into the building. This is up in Boston. And I'm like, I know she's home. So I'm calling her. I'm outside her door, and I hear the phone ringing. I'm like, I know she's in here. And I've never done anything like this. Like, a girl blew me off. I was just like, whatever, on to the next. But I was like, I'm at the door listening. I know, I'm really going crazy here. I'm on some stalker stuff right now. So I must really love this woman, which was what it was. So one night I randomly called her like 2 a.m. after coming from the club, and she picked up the phone.
Still living his life.
I think you answered by accident.
I did,
you were
'cause
probably
I was
sleeping,
asleep.
and you picked up, and I was like, you've been ghosting me. What's going on? She's like, oh, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And she hasn't been able to get rid of me ever since then.
There you go. So he kind of forced his way back in, if that.
Yeah, because he was calling and it wasn't a year yet. See, he was still
I
persistent.
slid back in.
But he came back in about the
The
9-month
DMs.
mark. And he caught me at like 3 a.m. when I got off my 3rd job.
Come on.
Because I had 3 jobs when he met me. Got off my 3rd job, caught me, and I said, okay, we can do lunch tomorrow. And we went to lunch, and from there on, we have been together.
So not a full year, 9 months pass. You guys finally kind of reconnect. You find yourself, do you immediately go straight into the relationship at that point?
We started dating.
No, we just started dating.
Okay.
So it wasn't like just dating, not an official relationship.
Okay.
Started dating. Now 2 months into dating, not an official relationship. He didn't do the piece of paper where it said, "Will you go with me?" Check box, yes or no. It was just we were dating each other, getting to know each other. I told him, I said, we need to go to couples counseling. He was like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, we need to go to couples counseling.
That's a bit much for the dating stage.
He was like, I'm not going to counseling. I said, I'm sorry. I said, you know what? I said it wrong. I apologize. I said, if you want to be with me, you are going to couples counseling. It is a non-negotiable. And he was like, well, why do we need to go to couples counseling? I said, because I come from a single parent household. You come from a single parent household. We have never seen it done correctly. And Cosby Show, Family Matters, all of these great shows that we love, Fresh Prince, is not, we can't take away from that what we don't know.
Yeah.
So I told him, we have to learn how to communicate with each other. And in order to do that, we have to go to counseling to really learn who we are and what it takes to be able to communicate in a serious relationship. So he was like, he went kicking and screaming, but he went and he showed up on time.
Yep.
Because I told him I have OCD for being late.
And you know what happened in counseling? By halfway through that first meeting, I'm doing all the talking.
Yeah, now he
I'm
running
like,
his mouth.
She does this, she does that. I don't like this. So
I'm like, you didn't even want to
and she looking
come.
at me like, why
Now
you
everything
telling them
my
all this
fault.
stuff?
Now I'm in there like, this is what we doing.
And
Okay.
after counsel, I'm like, remember what the counselor said?
Yeah, going off his notes and everything. Like, remember the counselor said, we are not to talk in this voice.
Yeah.
I said, okay.
You regretted that
So
decision.
this is what we doing. But I knew for us to have any chance of longevity, we needed to be able to talk to someone when we don't need to talk to them versus when we need it and now it's too late. So that's 2 months in, we went to couples counseling. We got a chance, an opportunity to really learn who we are and learn why we each individually do some of the stuff. I learned one of the things that there is a such thing as being too strong, right? I was raised by an alpha female. My mother was the mother and the father. So I've only seen women who could do everything. So going into that relationship, that was me, a true alpha female who feels like I have to be able to do everything. Super strong, never saw my mother cry, held down everything. And through counseling, I learned there's a thing of there's a such thing as being too strong and understanding that at times you want to be vulnerable. You don't want to have to be strong 365 days out of the year. But I learned that about myself as well. And I learned okay, I can breathe. I had 3 jobs when I met him. No kids, just me.
You were supporting a lot of family members.
But I saw my mother do it. So I didn't think she did it because she had 4 kids. That's what I saw, so that's what I did.
Yeah.
Right? And then I tried to take care of everyone and in the process. So getting together, 2 months in, started dating. He actually asked me to be his woman at a New Edition concert.
Okay.
In Rhode Island. Crazy.
Providence, Rhode Island.
But we didn't start dating until how long in?
2 months in.
No, I mean going together.
Yeah.
Okay, in his mind,
Well,
we
his
were
day
going
one,
together.
you was mine.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
mean,
I had to
who's
constantly
counting dates?
I had to tell him we don't go together yet. He was like, we go together.
Yeah.
I would say we didn't start make it official until maybe 6, 7 months in, 8 months in.
I don't remember. It didn't matter.
Okay, so we were dating from day one.
Just
in his mind. I think for us, it's probably about 8 months in when he actually officially asked me.
Okay. So the year off, get back, the counseling, couple months into it, boom, we go together. Where, as we're navigating this, where does the introduction to real estate, as you guys are now together, where does that intro to real estate now happen?
Yeah,
He
where
gets
that
fired.
happens was I got laid off.
Really?
So I was 2012. I'm working for HubSpot, which is a big, internet marketing company. I'm doing sales for them. I missed my sales quota for 2 quarters in a row, and I got canned. I got fired. I just bought a house, just bought a brand new car. So I got a mortgage. I got a car note. I had never been laid off before, and I was depressed. I was like, how am I going to pay my bills? Am I going to get foreclosed? My credit's going to be ruined. And I'm moping around the house. I'm wearing the same clothes for 2 weeks straight in my basement apartment in my 3-family in Boston. And she came over to visit me, and she was like, dude, what's wrong with you? You look a mess. You look like shit. And I was like, I told you I got laid off, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, look, I'll let you wallow in your pity for a couple. You want to tell what you said?
Yeah, I was like, okay, all right. So I let you wallow long enough. It's been about a good 2 weeks. Are you bathing? What we doing here?
Okay.
I said, listen, the job lost you. You didn't lose that job. I said, F that job. Now you're going to take time to figure out what God truly has in store for you. I said, and it wasn't that job. That was seasonal. That season has passed. We are going to let it pass. What you're going to do now, I said, is you're going to go out there and you're going to truly live your life. You're going to go out there, ride your motorcycle, clear your head, and truly now walk in your true destiny. What does God have in store for you? Don't worry about your bills. Don't worry about no mortgage. Don't worry about your car payments or any of that. I said, I will hold you down and I will take care of those. What I want you to do is go out there and truly find out what it is God has in store for you. And this job was not it. So within a month, he had started his own marketing company.
Okay.
Already had clients. Already got offered to for him to speak at Harvard. Had started looking at business ventures. Within 2 months, he had called me and he said, hey, I think I found a way for us to make money. And I said, what's that? He said, a friend of mine rents his place out on what's called Airbnb when he goes out of town.
This is in 2012. Airbnb is still new.
Yeah, maybe only been around like 2 years, maybe.
Got you. So
very
new. Yeah.
Very early. And I said, okay, tell me more. He was like, yeah, we can rent your apartment out since you're always at my place.
She was always over my apartment.
Here we go.
She couldn't get enough of your boy, you know. She was always, so her apartment was sitting vacant. It was right on the subway. I'm like, yo, we can rent your place out. And I was like, well, hold on. Your brother's staying there, so we can't rent it. And she was like, hold on. He was staying there.
I picked my phone up.
Wait, was he paying rent or you just?
No.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You got to get it going.
On the couch.
You got to go. You got to go.
I called him. I was like, yeah, hey, you got 2 weeks and I'm going to need you out. No. I'll start paying rent. I said, it's too late. I'm already got it leased. I'm going to need you out in 2 weeks. He said, oh, man, all right, sis. 2 weeks came. He was out, moved in, furnished the whole place, refurnished it, did what we had to do for Airbnb, started renting it out. Within 6 months, we made about $60,000. What did we make?
6 months? Oh, wow. So basically like $10,000 a month.
Yeah, we were cleaning up with the Airbnb, so we was able. Her mom was just about to get remarried, was able to pay for her mom's wedding in cash.
Yep.
You know, so it was great. That was the first business venture, and we had just started dating. And
literally,
so that
just started dating.
This is good. Okay, so you pretty much go from getting laid off to now you have a business that's doing $10,000 a month. For you, especially Dedric, if I remember correctly, earlier on, you talked about kind of being like a entrepreneur, right? I think for every person that's an aspiring entrepreneur, that first dollar is like proof of concept. Like, okay, I could do this, right? What's that mindset shift that happened, whether it's for you or really for the both of you guys in that moment in time? Because with Crystal, she always like entrepreneurship or nothing, right?
Yep.
With you, you're just like, maybe I can, I can't. We gonna figure it out. Talk to me about that.
I grew up on Section 8. My mom made like 30 grand a year, single mom. So I was like, I don't want to go back to being broke or poor, right? So I was afraid of the risk because I'm like, what if I fail? I was afraid of losing my shirt. So I used to go to seminars. I used to take classes. I had all the books. I had CDs. I had a whole library of self-help and business stuff, but I never jumped off the ledge because I was too afraid of failure.
Yeah.
That was until I met her. Did you hear that pep talk she gave me when I got fired? Like I could have ran through a brick wall.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you find someone who just breathes life into you, it was just powerful. So we got into Airbnb and made that first dollar, and it was proof of concept. And I'm like, man, we can actually do this. Then we started looking for a second place, right? And a third, but then her landlord got wind of it. So they got wind that we were subleasing the apartment, and people in the building like, who are these people coming in and out? And she got evicted, but she moved in with me. And around that same time, her mom had just retired from being a bank teller, bank manager. Her mom moved back to North Carolina. She's super close with her mom, so she was like, hey, remember when we first started dating, I asked you, are you tied to Boston? I'm moving to North Carolina to be close to my mom. And I was like, well, you're not going to leave me up here in this cold. We going to North Carolina. So we moved to North Carolina. I moved there with no job, right? But I had the confidence now that I could start a business, right? Yeah. We moved there. I went on LinkedIn. A couple weeks later, I found a job, right? Doing software sales for another company down there. And that's how we ended up in North Carolina.
And when he moved, I still had my job. So my job I could work from home at. The other two, I ended up leaving. And then the 9 to 5 during the day, I moved down there. And like I told him, he was mulling over whether or not to go back to school.
I was thinking about getting my MBA.
To get his MBA. And he was kind of reluctant. He was like, I don't really want to move down there without a job. Let me see if I can find a job first. And I said, listen, don't worry about finding a job first. He was like, well, I was thinking about going back to get my MBA, but then we'd be down to one income. I said, okay, then we'll be down to one income. If that's what you want to do that. Because I know long term how that could impact our family with your MBA. So that wasn't an issue. We can work off my salary. And then he ended up as soon as he put his resume out there, he got a ton of hits. So when we got there, like he said, within a couple of weeks, he had a job. But for me, I was working for my 9 to 5, but then still working on my 5 to 9. What other business venture are we about to do next?
So you launched the Airbnb. You ultimately get evicted from your apartment. You guys then make the move to NC, if I understand it correctly.
North Carolina.
So at that point, the Airbnb business just stops altogether?
Yes.
It was done.
So the Airbnb business dies. You're trying to figure out what happens next. But, obviously you guys are still investors now. So how do you now circle back now to real estate after the Airbnb business dies?
So we tried a few things in between there. A few network marketing companies, MLMs. Everybody, your family gonna approach you at some point if they haven't already. Hey, I got this thing. Come over and watch this video. You're like,
if you get 7 people, the 7 people get 7 more people.
Right.
Yeah.
So we over the years, we've done like dozens of those. Made like a total of $13.22.
Come on now.
Right?
Yeah.
So she actually had found this business 2015, 2016. It was animal rides. So like these little scooters that kids can rent at the mall, the little furry animals you can rent out. And she was like, I found a business I think we should look into. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's not really a real business. And then she was like, no, you should really research this. So I started researching it, and we went to the mall and we watched the kiosk and how busy it was on a weekend at the mall. And I was like, oh, okay, well, they're actually making some money here with all these rentals. So it was a guy she found online who was selling his animal rides business. So he had 11 malls, these kiosks at 11 malls, renting these little animal scooters. And he lived in Mississippi. He had locations about 3 or 4 states and opening up new malls all the time. But his wife was getting tired of him always being on the road, opening up new locations. So she was like, look, you got to sell some of these because, you're not going to be married soon if you keep being on the road. So he wanted to sell the 2 North Carolina locations. He wanted like $80,000 for it. We didn't have $80,000. We had a few dollars, but not that much. So we negotiated with him. I didn't have that. I actually had my 401k from corporate. So I was like, I had a 401k left over from my job that I got laid off at. And I was like, hey, I'll buy it. I'll give you $40,000 for the business. The business is generating a couple $100,000 a year in top line revenue, maybe $30,000, $40,000 a year in profit. So we actually took that $40,000 and bought that business. And that's what we were doing on the side. And this is 2015 going into 2016. So again, we always had a side hustle or a side business because we were trying to figure out how do we get out of the rat race? How do we, leave the 9 to 5 plantation, as I like to call it? And again, there's some people who love their job and more power to them. Some people like their job. I just wasn't fulfilled working in corporate America.
You get this, now have this business. How do you now, because if I understand at one point, like on the real estate side, you end up stumbling into wholesaling. So you have this business that's doing what it's doing over here. How do you guys bridge the gap now to start getting into that?
So with the animal rides, I woke up one day, woke up one morning, told Dedric, I said, hey, I think we need to sell. He was like, what? We're making a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
I said,
that was top line. That was the profit.
I said, I think we need to sell. He's like, and now we were already looking to expand. All these malls were asking us to come into them because how well we ran the ones we had. And he was like, why would you want to sell? And it was just, for me, God always gives me the vision and the plan.
Yep.
So he gave it to me when I went to sleep. I woke up and I said, yeah, I know, but we need to sell. And I didn't know why. So Dedric's like, okay, all right. Looked for a broker, put it online, sold it. Next year.
Sold it for twice
what we paid for it, bought it for. Next year, COVID hit.
So
look
she
at
was
God.
right.
And all malls closed down.
Yeah.
So we took the money from that and I said, listen, it's time for us to do what you always wanted to do. You wanted to, Dedric's goal and dream, since I met him, was to get into real estate. I said, let's take this money and now let's invest in your dream. I'm tired of you talking about it. Because Dedric will talk you to death about some real estate and what everybody else is doing in it. I said, now it's time for you to do it. And that's how we ended up taking that money and started going to seminars, going to
mentorships, taking classes,
mentorship, paying for private mentors, paying
and we
for
would fly all around
coaches.
the country to these classes to get the information, to get the knowledge.
Everywhere. And wholesaling was what Dedric kept gravitating towards.
Okay.
The reason I gravitated towards wholesaling is because we didn't have a lot of cash. So we were working. I was making 6 figures at my job, but we didn't have a lot of money saved up, right? So we couldn't just go buy a rental property or buy a fix and flip. Definitely not up north. Even down south, we didn't have that type of capital. So everybody's like, look, you wholesale, you can make large chunks of cash within, a relatively short amount of time. And then the idea was to take that money from wholesaling and use that to buy income producing assets like rental properties.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we did. But once she started doing the research on wholesaling and watching YouTube videos, next thing I know, she set up the LLC and she was like, we doing this. Because I started reading and researching shit. Like, we doing this
Once
now.
I start, it's a wrap. You might as well lock
Ball
it
game.
up.
Yeah,
Hang it
so
up. Doing it.
we started going full steam ahead from there.
What did the early days of wholesaling look like?
The early days was a lot of education. We flew up to Philly.
Ton
That's
of
where we met
education.
Herman for a real estate seminar. He was doing business credit. We hired a mentor. Our first mentor, we paid her $5,000. She was an expert in fix and flip, right? And she actually worked for Rich Dad, Poor Dad. She would travel around the country teaching people how to flip houses. So we went to Charlotte. She taught us how to flip houses. After 3 days of sitting down in the conference room, learning how to flip houses, we were like, well, we know how to flip houses now, but we don't have the capital
ain't got no
to
cash.
buy a house, right? And she was like, why didn't y'all tell me this before? She was like, all right, what you guys need to do is you need to learn wholesaling. She was like, there's a marketing boot camp where you can learn how to advertise and marketing to find these motivated sellers to do wholesale. You got to fly out to St. Louis, Missouri. And at first I was like, oh no. And she kept on us. And I'm glad she was persistent, following up like, hey, did you sign up for that class? Did you sign up?
Yep.
Finally, we signed up. We flew out there. We went to this boot camp. And at the end of the boot camp, they offered the opportunity to join a mastermind. Now, we hadn't never really heard of a mastermind, but we learned that it's a group of people who are all super high level in a certain industry, and they're very successful, and they get together monthly or quarterly to share their secrets of how they're being successful.
Yeah.
The cost was $16,000 to get into this room with these they're all 7-figure earners. 16 grand, right? And I didn't want to do it. But when they made the offer, she's nudging me under the
Dedric
table.
just sat there and listened to him. He didn't even move. He was just like,
blinking.
oh, okay.
We didn't have 16 grand. I'm just like,
And I'm looking at him like, is there a reason why you still sitting here? I'm like,
And I'm like, I know she's going to want to do this. 'Cause I was afraid of investing all this money and it not working. And it wasn't that the business wasn't going to work. It was like, all right, now if I invest this, I'm going to have to make it happen.
100%.
But that's one of the best investments we've ever made. I had a credit card. It wasn't a personal credit card. I had an American Express business credit card in my back pocket, $20,000 limit, hadn't used it for anything for times like this. I took that credit card, plunked it down, 16 grand. That got us in the room, and that was one of the best investments we've ever made.
How did that investment now put you in position for the wholesaling business to start taking off?
You want to talk about that mastermind?
Because what it did is it put us in a room and in a space with people who were already doing this at a high level. So for Dedric and I, coming every single quarter, we were really accomplishing and not moving the needle, accomplishing nothing and not moving the needle
Even
in
though
our
we were
business.
trying.
Yeah.
Now, not for the lack of trying, but it just it wasn't falling for us, right? We weren't getting it. Now we go to these masterminds every quarter and people are like, man, well, I know I said I was going to add 150 doors. I only added 125, so I fell off. Yeah, I only made another 2.5 million. And me and him looking like,
I have $14. I have $14.
That's what it was like. It was like, how are we supposed to follow these people up? It was the most embarrassing ever. And we had to do this twice. We came back with no new news. And at the mastermind, you have to get up and present in front of everyone.
Yeah.
What have you done?
And what it did was it made it uncomfortable for us. And we were the lowest on the totem pole in this room. Everyone here were full-time investors and entrepreneurs. And Dedric and I were not. And they made it uncomfortable for us. But what they also did was they opened up all doors to us. So anything we ever needed, all information, anything, they were always willing to help. They were constantly telling us, hey, look, you should look at this. You should look at that. Here's another thing you should use. This is what you should do. This is what I'm doing in my business. So it got us in the room to be able to get the answers that we needed.
Yeah.
And that's why association is so powerful,
Yep.
right? You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
Your
Yep.
income is going to be the average, your, fitness, your spiritual life, your relationships, the people that you spend the most time with. So that's why we've been intentional since we learned that, by getting around people who were at a higher level than us. In whatever area we were trying to be successful at,
Yep.
you got to get around people who are doing that at a high level. That's going to rub off on you. Whether you want it to or not, it's going to rub off on you.
Because for us, it rubbed off. And I said, we're not coming back again if we haven't done any deals.
Mm.
And I told Dedric, we're not flying back out here again unless we've done some deals. So that third quarter, we were on Zoom. We did it via Zoom. And I told him, this is it. By the next time we come, we're going to have done some deals. And because all of them people continued to pour into us and help us, and me researching, I literally ended up leaving my job.
We found our first wholesale deal on Facebook Marketplace.
After that first one, second one came immediately. Then the third one came and it was $105,000 wholesale fee. Virtual, never seen the house.
The property was in Boston.
It was in Boston.
So we were in North Carolina. We found a motivated seller who his uncle had passed away and left him a 3-family in Boston. And he lived in Jersey. So he didn't even know he had this property. So we called him like, hey, we see you own this property in Boston. Are you interested in selling it? And he was like, what property? We were like, well, so-and-so Lonsdale Street in Dorchester. He was like, I don't own a property there. And we were like, well, yeah, we looked in public records. You do. He's like, oh, my uncle who passed away. Oh, he must have left it to me. And we were like, how much do you want for it? He's like, give me like $500,000. It's like getting a Brooklyn brownstone for like $1 million now. It's like, okay, we agreed to $475. He didn't realize that renovated 3 families in Boston were going for over $1 million once they were all fixed up, $1.2 million. So we agreed to give him $475,000. We said, hey, give us about 60 days to close. Now, we didn't have $465,000. So I was nervous as hell. But we knew that property was worth way more once somebody put some TLC and some improvements into it. So we got under contract, made a few phone calls to some investors there who were flipping houses and doing condo conversions in that neighborhood. And we ended up finding a cash buyer willing to pay $580. We had it locked up for $475. We did a double closing, and we ended up making $105,000 off one deal. We never even saw the house. We're in North Carolina, but we knew all the gentrification that was going on in that neighborhood and all the development. And that was like the eye-opener, like, man, I can really leave my job, from this wholesaling thing. And when we closed on that was our third deal. We fired her boss, right? So we gave her boss the pink slip, and we bought like 20 rental units in North Carolina because they were a lot less expensive. We bought 3 or 4 3-families, a couple of duplexes like immediately because we had now had cash, right, to actually, invest.
But
so
we
that
had
was a game changer.
planned for it over the course of the year for me leaving my job.
Yeah.
We set a date. So over the course of a year, we planned for that exit strategy. So each quarter, we banked a portion of my paycheck to make sure we could live off of one income.
So you want to break that down. So we both were working in corporate. Again, I was making over 6 figures. She was making close to it. And we're like, hey, one of us has to leave our job, leave corporate first. And we're like, why don't you leave first because your salary is a little lower than mine. So we sat down. We're like, okay, so the Q1, we're gonna live off of my salary plus 75% of your salary. Right? Q2, we're going to live off of my salary plus 50% of your salary, right? We're going to save the rest. And then by Q4, we're going to just learn how to live off my salary and we're going to save all of your salary. So after a year doing that, we were able to just live off one salary plus the wholesale fees we were making. And we were able to comfortably, fire her boss at that point. So that's how we strategically was able to bring her home from corporate.
As I'm listening to you guys' story, the number one takeaway that I'm getting so far is the amount of alignment that exists here is great because at no point in time as you guys are explaining your story and I'm sure, of course, in any relationship, there's always going to be agree to disagree, but it never really seems like there was a point where, Crystal, you came to Dedric with something, he was just like, nah, we not doing that. And it's just like a series of bumping your head or vice versa. And even if it was a short-lived and it's just like, you know what? She's probably right. He's probably right. Let's run it. And I think that's so powerful because, I think back to what you talked about of just like having that year off and everything that led up to this point of making sure that this is your person. And I think that there are a lot of people in relationships right now who are entrepreneurs and they're pursuing this thing in spite of their partner.
Yep.
It's like this.
It's like everything is
Butting heads.
Like the $16,000 investment, right? You know how many relationships something like that would have ended where it's like, hey, I'm about to put 16K into this thing.
Absolutely.
And it's just like 16K. No. Like, we're not doing that, like, because they can't see it, right? There's not an alignment. You guys aren't equally yoked.
Yep.
So it's like, when I want to buy this property, when I want to invest in this mentorship, when I want to start this business, we're always fighting. But with you two, it was always just a thing of like, as long as it makes sense on both sides, yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
Absolutely.
You hit the nail on the head. And it actually goes back to our first date. So our first date, we sat down at Joe's All-American Grill in Boston. And I'm thinking we're going to lunch and, lovey-dovey talk and stuff. And she starts grilling me. It's an interview. So she's like, all right, what's your 1 year goal? I tell her what my goal is for the next year. Okay, what's your 3-year plan? I give her that. What's your 5-year? And she's literally interviewing me. So I'm like, okay. So then I start interviewing her. Okay, well, what's your 1 year goal? What's your 3-year plan? And we found out quickly that we both were entrepreneurs at heart. We wanted to build something. We didn't want to just work for someone else. And we found out that we were equally yoked, right? She's even more aggressive with her entrepreneurship than me, right? I'm more of the analytical, but we balance each other out because there's times where she'll come with a new business idea and I'll be like, no, let's focus on this one.
No, what Dedric typically will say is, if I'll say, hey, I think we should look at this, instead of him just saying no, he'll say, okay. He's like, it seems like a really good idea. He said he'll play that devil's advocate. He'll come in and he'll be like, okay, well.
She's a serial entrepreneur.
If we do that, okay, well, with this, if you look at these numbers, they're this, and this. And then I'm like, yeah, you might be right. Yeah, you might be right. But that it comes back to, like he said, that first date. I didn't ask him what his favorite food was because I wasn't planning on cooking it. I didn't ask him what he do on the weekends.
What country you trying to travel to?
I didn't ask
your favorite
what's
rapper
your favorite
is.
color. I didn't ask any of that. It was irrelevant to me, right? What is your credit score?
She literally asked him, and people are usually like shocked. Like, your first date, she asked you what your credit score was?
Yeah, and full disclosure, like I tell people, I asked him not because if he just said it's 5'10", I'd have been like,
pack this up, I'm out of here.
Well, it was nice. It was nice. You get that check.
Hilarious.
It wasn't that. It was, even if it was a 500 credit score, it would have been, in my mind, okay, it's 500. That means for the next year, we're going to have to rebuild this. How are we going to move? That's what I asked for. How are we going to move depending upon where your credit score is, where my credit score is? This is how we're going to move over the next year. That's how my mind thinks. So I didn't care what credit score he had. It was just to tell me how we're going to move for the next year, whether that's credit repair or you already there so we can hit the ground running. He was already like an 810. My credit score was way lower than his. But
so you had the audacity to ask me.
No, I think you got to get that out the way. Right?
Yeah. And most people don't get to that till later. Most couples.
No, and when they see us and we're speaking somewhere, this is what we get asked the most questions about. It is always about, I'm married or I'm in a relationship, my wife isn't interested or my husband's not interested. How do I get them into it? How long you been together? 10 years. Okay, these are what we get. And I tell people, what was your first date like? What did you guys talk about? Because I'm not going to waste 2 years falling in love with someone that at the end of the day, he and I are not equally aligned, right? We're going in two totally different directions. And I tell them, I said, well, you changed, not him. Because there are people who do have a W-2 mindset and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't, and I know I need to make sure that I'm with someone who understands an entrepreneur's mindset, who's going to understand if I say pay $16,000 for this, they're going to be like, okay.
That you see opportunities everywhere.
Exactly. And also someone who you got to understand someone's spending habits, right? And not on the 10th date. I want to know right now, what are your spending habits? Are there any what did I ask him? I asked him about his medical history, right?
What's your anything running your family medical wise?
Right.
Like,
why is that important? Because there are couples who
had me calling my grandma like, we got anything in our family?
There are couples who get together and both of them end up with the sickle cell trait.
Yeah.
And now you pass it on to your child unbeknownst to them. And I just tell people, if you really just sit down and get out that fluff, right? He looked good, I look good. We both know we was attracted to each other. We both know we could hit. You know, we know that already. Now let's get to that of substance. Right?
Yeah.
What is it? Where are you going in life? Right? I asked him, do you plan on staying in Boston forever? He said, well, I mean, I ain't really tied to Boston. I mean, I can leave, you know. I said, okay, well, anyone who's going to be with me is going to have to be willing to move within the next year because I don't plan on being here. He was like, oh, okay, well, look,
And
I ain't
I'm
got no
glad
kids.
she brought that up because when she was like, yo, I'm moving, it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like out
You
the
see?
blue. She already planted the seed. So I was like, okay, bet, let's move.
Yeah. I'm going to just unpack that because you just said a lot. So I appreciate what you guys said so much because you being married, I'm in a relationship. And whenever I speak with married individuals, the number one thing I always hear is it's the most important decision you'll ever make in your life. It's the most important decision you'll ever make in your life. And for me, it's like, if that holds to be true, why is it that so many people avoid the due diligence that's required before you make that decision?
Due diligence.
That's why I appreciate what you guys said so much because it's just like, let's have the uncomfortable. There's a saying where it's like, when you avoid short-term discomfort, you're setting a foundation for long-term dysfunction.
There you go.
So it's like, you got to be able to embrace those uncomfortable conversations of just like, you know, like you said, people are 2, 3, 4 years in being with somebody. They don't know anything about their medical history. They don't care much about their spending habits and beyond because it's just like, hey, we're good. We're together. The dates are fun. You know, whenever we're around each other, we laugh. I guess that's it. And it's just like, once again, not as someone who's married, but speaking to other individuals who are married, it's so much more than just, you know, date nights and ha-has and he-he's. Even for me, one thing I do now with the young lady that I'm with, I've been with her for a year. Every 3 months we have a meeting. And I kind of just treat it like a business where we sit down, we analyze every part of the relationship. We're going to talk about what's going on with you financially, what's going on with me financially, what's going on with you spiritually. What's going on with me spiritually, what's going on with you personally. And like, we're auditing the relationship. And I remember the first time I did it, she was kind of just like why are you treating this like it's a business? I'm like, because this is we're both making an investment because who you were 3 months ago, spiritually or financially, may not be that person now.
Absolutely.
You grow, you change.
You understand? But a lot of times you get so caught up in the all right, we here, we having a good time, date nights, this and this. You look up 4 or 5 years up, you're like, who is this person? Because you didn't do the work in between.
There
you understand? So
there you go.
This is good. This is very
no,
good.
I mean, what you said, you just distilled it down. I mean, and again, I wish I would have knew what you're discovering now and you're doing the research and the due diligence and talking to people at 26.
Yeah.
Right? So very wise.
Yeah, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. A relationship is a partnership. When Dedric and I got together, before we got together on that first date, I told him where I was spiritually. I said, I go to church almost every day. I'm in church. And that's just because I was also over ministries and stuff. So I told him I don't have a lot of time. For the first a year, only time he could see me was where?
If she wasn't at work, she was at church.
Come on.
Because she was leading the dance ministry and very active. So I literally would have to go to her church just to see her.
He'd bring me food there. Like, he would pull up just for...
That's why my grandmother liked you. My grandmother, she didn't like you at first. Because my grandmother... So for the record, my ex basically brainwashed my grandmother. So when me and my ex broke up and I started dating her, my grandmother was like, I don't like this new girl.
You ain't going to date this new girl. You going to go back to her. She
was the enemy.
You are going to go back to her. And it wasn't until she started to see Dedric get up.
Because we lived in 3 families, so she lived on the top floor.
And she was neighborhood watch. So anytime anybody left, she was at the window like...
on the stoop.
And it wasn't until she saw Dedric get up every Sunday and was going to church.
Come on.
That is when his grandmother...
Amen, somebody.
...literally started to like me. And it went from first time I met her... it was a Thanksgiving. She did me the side hug. She's all right. Didn't even look at me. It was just side. She was like,
side eye.
Did the little tap on the back. Yes, honey. Yeah. Glad to meet you. And looked around.
COVID or something.
And I looked at that like, wow. After she saw him getting up, she called his ex, sat down with her. And told her, honey, you're going to have to let him go. And she said, this young lady
Mm.
got my baby going to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
This is God's will. You are gonna have to let
God's
him
work,
go.
right?
Like, this is his grandmother called the ex and had the
Right then
conversation
and there on the
with
spot.
my baby. This young lady got my baby going to church every
My
Sunday.
grandma's old school.
This is, and how do I know? Because she called me upstairs one day. I was at Dedric's house. Dedric's like, my grandmother want to talk to you. I said, not by myself. He was like, yeah, she just wants you. I said, okay.
You have to say a prayer before you went up there.
I did, and I went up and she sat me down and she said, listen, I didn't care for you much when I met you. I didn't. It ain't no secret. She said, I liked his ex. I did. That I love her. But when I see my baby get up every Sunday and go to church, I knew this is God's way. This is God's will. And can't nobody come between that. So I called her, told her to come over, and I told her, you're going to have to let him go, baby. He's not coming back. God has put her here for a reason because she got my baby going to church every Sunday. I said, oh, that's what it took. Oh, okay. I said, well, yes, ma'am. She said, now, if you could just keep him in the Lord's house because he was raised that way. But when you get older, I know you sometimes you wander, but you done got my baby back into the church. But it was a conversation.
Yeah.
I didn't say, you got to go to church, did I? I didn't make him go or any of that. My time on Sundays is spent here. And if you want to be with me, you ain't got to go to both services like I go, but you're going to have to attend one. If you want to be with me, you're going to have to put your time in and give time to the Lord.
The Lord.
That's it.
That's it.
And I didn't make him. We drove after the first couple times he went, he really quickly said, yeah, I'm going to drive my own car and meet you there because I see everybody want to talk to you after church. I be trying to get to the game.
Yeah.
So he's trying to get to the game after. I said, baby, it's all right. No problem. I understand.
That's the thing about having a girl that's in ministry. It's like she got 2 services and then she got an usher's meeting.
Yeah.
Then after that, she got to meet with the choir after that. Then she got to stay after to meet with some of the deacons. And then she got to leave. Then she's coming back to the church that evening. Yeah.
That's what it was.
You know that.
I know.
Oh, okay. So he's familiar.
Yeah.
And you're right. I would be coming right back afterwards for a rehearsal or something. But
his wife
he understood right because we had these conversations in first date.
Yeah. Oh, this is good. Okay, so there's an alignment here. You guys are hitting the ground running with the real estate business. The relationship is humming. Things are going well. And at some point in time, in you navigating this journey together of real estate, you go from running the business to now an opportunity presents itself for you guys to document the journey of the business. The television show comes along.
Yes.
How did that come to be?
That actually stemmed from that mastermind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that same mastermind, we had talked about, hey, we need to be able to raise more money so we can acquire more real estate. How do we raise money? And the director of the mastermind was like, hey, you guys should document what you're doing. And we're like, what do you mean? It's the year 2017. He was like, whenever you do a walkthrough of a property, take out your phone, start recording. Whenever you meet with a contractor, whenever you meet with a seller or buyer, document the process of what you're doing. And he said, by doing that, what you're going to do is show people in your social network that know you, that you're serious about this, and that you're actually doing this business. And that's how you're going to attract investors. And she's really private. Like, she was like, well, I guess we're going to do it. So she was like, all right, you do it. So I just started documenting. Every time we're doing a walkthrough, I'm taking a selfie video, documenting the wins, not just the wins, the losses, right? The sideways plays where it didn't quite go right. And this is on Instagram, Facebook. We just started documenting what we're doing. We closed the first deal. Hey, let's show it, and over time we started growing the following. This is before, we never even thought about a TV show. Like, we didn't set out to do a TV show. So we started growing our following on Instagram and Facebook. And then we started a YouTube channel to continue to document what we were doing. And then eventually, casting companies started reaching out to us, right? And a few of them reached out to us, and we weren't sure if they were legit, so we didn't really pay much attention to it. And then A&E Network reached out. They DM'd us on Instagram.
They've been DMing us for like a year.
And you just didn't see it?
No, we saw it.
You just like, nah.
I wasn't interested. Our kids were small. I'm very private. So I would see a bunch of them were coming in our inbox all the time, and I would never click on them. And A&E ended up getting our 1-800 number. So they called. Our secretary at the time answered, and they made her promise to give us the message.
Okay.
Please.
And promise her them to have us call back. And that's when I came in and she was like, please call her. Because I promised her that you would give her a call back. So I said, okay, called her back. She asked if we could hop on a Zoom.
This is right after COVID.
Right.
2021.
Was it? No, it was during COVID.
Yeah, during COVID.
It was during COVID. Hopped on a call with her, Zoom call, and it went from, they was like, hey, we're going to be launching 3 new flipping shows, and we love following you guys in your journey on you flipping. Well, at the time, Dedric and I were not flipping. They were all our rentals.
So we were wholesaling, and we'd take the money from wholesaling and buy rental properties.
That was
buy
it.
Apartment buildings, buy single-family homes, and rent. We would renovate them, and we would document it on our social media. So they thought we were flipping and selling
because
these
of
houses.
the quality of the flip,
but we
of the
weren't selling them.
renovations.
And we're like, well, we're not house flippers. We don't do that. They were like, well, we don't care. We
It's
just
okay.
want to follow you guys. We just want to document what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
But they were going through thousands of people, thousands of candidates. So we was like, well, we don't really want to do a TV show. So we was like, let's just see how far we'll get. And that was the whole premise. We really had no interest of doing it. But we was like, let's just see how far we can get in the process. So then we could tell people like, yo, we got to the last round, or semi-round. And then it came Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call. And then came to the last one. And they was like, hey, we want to offer you guys one of the slots. And on the Zoom, Dedric and I looked at each other like,
Look at God.
we
We didn't think it was actually going to get picked.
Now, in the beginning, I was like, no. Dedric's like, oh, it would be interesting for us to do it. I was like, yeah, no. Let's just see how far we'll go, though. Then when they said, yes, we want you guys, Dedric was like,
no.
I don't want to do this. And then I was like, well, we kind of have to. We've already given them our word. We've come this far. And I'm very big on standing on your word, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, we got to do it now. Like, they went through all these candidates and got down to 3, and then us being 1. So we was like, okay, you go into it not knowing what you don't know. And you quickly learn what is being told to you may not be what happens.
The entertainment business.
In the entertainment business. So, like, we went from, you only film, 2 to 3 days a week. A couple hours a day. It went from that to we were filming 5 days a week, 10 hours a day.
Come on.
For about 10 months.
To do season 1.
To
and
do
we did
season
6
1.
episodes in season 1.
And
Now, mind you, we're still wholesaling. Our faces off. We're still buying rental properties. We're still doing our businesses.
Yeah.
And filming was on top of it. So season 1
killed us.
It stretched us.
Ooh,
Like, we got a lot more gray hairs. Because we had never been on TV. We never experienced that. But we grew more.
Indeed.
Like, we realized that our capacity was much greater than we ever thought it was.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing experience.
What do you think it was about you guys' story that resonated so much with the producers that they wanted to go with the both of you?
Great question, because he actually told us. So the head of A&E is the one who made the final picks for the season, and he
Shout out to Brad.
Yes.
He's actually from the city. He moved down to North Carolina. He is now a full-time real estate investor.
Yes.
He got so inspired by seeing us and what we were doing that he left his job doing big wig at A&E, moved to North Carolina, Charlotte. He's now actually just did his second flip. He's a full-time real estate investor now.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
But he was speaking to one of the masterminds we were in, and he told them, he was like, listen, before everyone comes to start trying to pitch me,
On a TV show.
for a TV show, he said, don't. I know exactly what I'm looking for. He said, and just to put it in context for you guys, he was like, Crystal and Dedric, when they sent me their sizzle reel, because we didn't submit one, A&E submitted one for us. When their sizzle reel was submitted to me, I knew within 5 seconds that they were one of them. He said, now, did I have to go through the formalities of looking at hundreds and hundreds more? He said, yes. He said, but you cannot fake the chemistry that these two have. You cannot fake the genuineness that these two bring. He was like, and to see that men are going to resonate with Dedric, women are going to identify with Crystal because they are genuine individuals. They're not forcing anything. And that's really what we are. We're very fully transparent. And for them, I think it was just them seeing, one, people that don't really look like them.
Yeah.
So what he said, and these are his words, he was like, look, there's a million white flipping shows. He said there is. And he was like, if you don't know that, then you're not watching TV.
Yeah.
He said, I needed something different.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He said, and yes, I know a lot of you guys have been doing it for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot longer than them. He said, but that's not what the world wants to see all the time. He said, so for us, it was just, he was like, the genuineness of who we are and us wanting to give to people and truly give to our community. So when people see our show, they love the flips, but they love even more what we do for our community. Love the fact that we are teaching them to do what we're doing and not just showing them how to turn $1 million house that they are never going to be able to afford into 1.5 million into a 2.5 million.
Yeah.
Either way, it's out their tax bracket.
The average person can't afford that.
We're doing starter homes that you can work at Kroger's and afford, right? But we do it where this can now be your forever home at a starter home price point, right? We're giving housing to people who truly need it, affordable housing to people who truly need it. And then we're showing them that you don't have to be a landlord who owns 40,000 doors to do it. We're small landlords, but we show them through our actions that you can still make an impact, where we're giving individuals affordable housing. One of the ladies who, one of the women who lived in one of the units that we purchased, a 4-unit, she'd been there over 22 years. Renting $400 a month, 22 years. Could you imagine living here in New York, $400 a month?
Let me tell you something. If I'm paying $400 a month anywhere, I'm not. You gotta shoot me to leave.
That's called rent control to the extreme.
I'm locked in.
So locked.
She was 80-something years old, had been paying $400 a month rent for 22 years. We bought the building. You know what most people would have done is like, sorry, you got to leave. But we looked at her as like, what if that's my grandmother?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want somebody to kick my grandmother out after 20. She was a widow. So we were like, you know what? We're going to do the right thing. We put her up in furnished corporate housing. We were like, look, we got to go through and remodel this whole building. We spent $160,000 redoing the whole building. She was there for 4 months in corporate housing. Once we were done, we moved her back in and we didn't increase her rent. And the way we were able to do that is because we rented the other 2 units on Airbnb, so we got a higher rent and we were able to subsidize her rent with the income from the Airbnb units.
Now she has went up though. I think she's at 500 now, but that's where her locked rate is.
So how has having the show impacted the family dynamic? Because you like you said, you're running the business, you know, you're still a married couple, but like you said, you guys also have kids. You have 2 sons, right? And you're doing everything you were doing before, but now you're doing it under the lights, under a lens. Did that shift things at all for the both of you? And if so, how?
Of course, it always shifts because now you're kind of like under that microscope,
Yeah.
And everything you do is scrutinized, right? Everything you say,
think about everything
you gotta. And for me, I've always.
You don't have much of a filter.
Right, like.
You have one, but.
I do, like.
Don't say the wrong thing to you, because you're liable to.
Right, like, yes.
To read somebody.
Right. So now it is, and then now people use that and try and weaponize that. Like, well, you know, she can't really say nothing because they got that TV show and they're going to lose it. And I tell people, like, look, we have money before the show.
We don't need the TV show.
We don't need the show. They came to us. We did not go to them. Let's be real clear. Don't overstep your bounds with me. And we have 2 small sons, 11 and 7. So I'm super overprotective of my family, extremely overprotective. And we're super active parents, right? So even with the TV show, they understood if my son has a 10-minute art exhibit, we gonna be there for that 10-minute art exhibit, and filming will resume when we get back.
Well, if you want to come film here, y'all can film here, but I'm going to this art
That's
exhibit.
it. Right. Like, I don't care what it is. We got into entrepreneurship for the freedom of time.
Yeah.
That's where true freedom comes from, is when you have that time. to do things that is important to you. So the TV show definitely allowed people to really see the family dynamic of us, but it's that double-edged sword at times. Like, it's great because we literally get mail every week from somebody in prison saying that they're watched our show and it's changing their life. They're trying to do what we're doing now in prison. And we're getting letters from all over. People literally have driven to what they thought was our office, is really our mailbox, looking to meet us from like DC. So it brings
People get inspired when they watch it.
Exactly. A true inspiration to see how it affects people's lives, right? People have come up to us crying like, your show has just been, to see what you guys have done for like season 2, what we did for the veteran. And I tell people we were doing this off camera.
Yeah.
So A&E, which is amazing about A&E, they shoot documentary style. You know, First 48.
Yeah.
Parking Wars.
You know, it's documentary style. It's not scripted. So they're just documenting what we're doing in our business. And we were doing all of this before them. So for people to see that people like us still exist out there, right? We don't flex. We don't do anything for the gram. Still don't, even with the TV show. It's really just stuff that, like our motto says, do good while doing well. And we lift as we rise. If we can't take people with us where we're going or show people how to get where we're at on the way up there, then what are we doing it for at the end of the day, right? Because all of it is a blessing to us. And we're only where we're at through God's grace and his mercy and his ability to be able to say, hey, listen, this is your time. And I tell people all the time, there is someone out there whose life depends on us and what we do. And their life is going to depend on us reaching back and helping someone that maybe their next connection. So that's really what the TV show has really brought to us, that it has allowed people to see, one, that no matter where you are at, you can do exactly what we're doing, and you can be an inspiration no matter where you are. There are people who, we have this thing called Don't Sell Big Mama's House. And, you know, a lot of people in the Black and brown community have these old homes that great-grandmama, big mama done had, and first thing they do is they sell it once they get it.
For pennies on a dollar. It could be a Brooklyn brownstone, but a lot of times, again, our people don't have the financial literacy. They're not educated. They don't have the capital. They don't have the connections. So I think what I want to add to that is just the representation, right? It's not too many people who look like us who are on national TV. Not all about drama and housewives, and those shows are great, but we're talking about financial literacy, empowering yourself, building generational wealth, and I think that resonates with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
I want to pick up on that one term you just said there, generational wealth, right? Like you said you both have 2 young sons, and you have this empire that you're building in this world of just entrepreneurship and real estate. How intentional have you been about involving them in that journey? Because to your point, to piggyback off of that, we see it all the time where you have, a family that has spent 30 years building up this business or this real estate portfolio or just this all these assets, and in their mind it's like, I'm working this, I'm my blood, sweat, and tears so I can pass it down to my kids, and 30 years of work gets liquidated in 30 days after they die.
We see it every day.
Right?
Every day.
With your sons, are they old enough now to where you guys can start having those conversations with them? And if not, like, what are the conversations you guys are having with each other to say, like, hey, we got to start making sure this is in place because we want to make sure our kids understand what's getting ready to be passed down to them. Talk a bit about that.
Oh, we've been having it.
Oh, yeah.
From birth.
They can't remember us even working jobs. They're 11 and 7. And, I remember my mom used to always have to work. So she couldn't come to my games. She couldn't come to the school play. Even though she wanted to, she had to work as a single mom to put food on the table for 3 sons. Same with her mom. We don't miss anything for our kids have. Nothing. They're like, you're here again? Like, yes, you can expect that.
They're like, you don't have to come. Yes, we
everything. We're like, no, that's our obligation. We love it. So, being in business for ourselves, like Crystal said, it's not just about the money, but it's about the freedom of time to do what you want, when you want, with whoever you want, and be able to empower that next generation. So our kids have grown up around the business. All they know is real estate,
business,
entrepreneurship.
Their entire life. They've been on our payroll since they've been able to be on payroll.
Yeah, we have on payroll.
Since we got pictures of our oldest son at the very first property that we ever bought.
Holding up a for sale
Holding
sign.
up a for sale sign. Because they both have had to learn this business. So when we go in these properties, anytime we're buying these houses, we say, well, when you inherit this, you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z. They've heard it so much that they understand that they're going to inherit all that we can amass before we transition.
Yeah.
And they're going to see all the blood, sweat, and tears. So we don't hide them from that point, right? Hide them from that fact. Most parents, and we see that because we're buying these portfolios from these individuals. These kids never saw what their parents had to go through to amass what they got.
Yep.
And some of them see it and they don't want that.
Yeah.
They've just been handed it. Like they've had it.
Yeah.
Our kids go to these properties. They're driving with us in cars as we're spending hours just driving, looking for houses. They're now picking out houses like, oh, mommy, that one's bad. That looks real ugly right there. They're used to it now because that's all they've ever seen. But we did it intentionally because of the very fact of what you said.
Yeah.
We don't want it where when we're no longer here, within 30 days, everything that we worked our entire life for is now sold. And our bodies ain't even cool. It is more so them understanding the sacrifices for which mommy and daddy have had to make to build something that outlives us, that will not only benefit you. We talk about financial literacy a lot in our house. They play the game, the cash flow game. They learn about finance. 11 and 7, they learn about the money that they get in, right? They learn about stocks, what they have in their stock portfolios.
If they want something, hey, you better go start a business and sell something.
Exactly.
Let's work
Our
on your
son
business.
will talk about some Balenciaga sneakers. They're only
$700.
$1,500. We're rich. No, you're poor.
We're rich. You ain't rich. What Shaq say to his kid? No, I'm rich. You ain't rich.
You are poor. I don't see that you have went out and worked yet. Well, mommy, what's yours is mine. That's what it is. It is mine.
Well, I just want to add this. One of the other things we're doing is we've set up trust for our kids, right? And typically in our community, we're not educated on trust. I just learned about them recently once I got into real estate because a lot of our properties are now in trust. With the trust, you can dictate what happens to your money and your assets. It doesn't have to be sold. So, for example, with some of our trusts, it's like, hey, at age 18, release $300,000 to pay for the kids' education. At age 22, release $250,000 to fund their first business. At age 30, release this amount of money to buy them their first house. This is what the wealthy do to perpetuate generational wealth. We have those same things set up now for the next generation so that they don't just inherit $5 million that they're going to go to Vegas and ball out and blow it in a few years.
Yeah.
No, you're going to inherit some assets, but it's going to be some rules and regulations around it so it can preserve not just for you and your family, you don't blow it,
kids.
but for additional generations.
So we have it set up so that it's not just our children, but then their children also, we have an estate plan in place for their children, grandchildren that we may not see. God willing, we do.
One way people can set this up, they don't realize, is through life insurance.
Right.
Through life insurance. Imagine if you had, you're young, you're healthy, you had a $5 million life insurance policy.
Yep. Where
you're paying $500 a month. But whenever you pass, whether it's when you're 30, 50, or 80, your kids get $5 million. You might, I've done the math, you might pay into that policy $500,000 over the next 50 to 60 years, but your kids are going to get $5 million whenever you pass.
Yeah.
So it's an investment where that can, set up the next generation.
So I'll ask you this, right? In a hypothetical situation, let's fast forward both your sons to, let's say they're that 18 to 23-ish. And at that point, they come to you guys and they're like, mom, dad, like the real estate thing is cool, but like I want to have a clothing brand or I want to start a restaurant. Would you say it's more about preparing them to run the family business, or is it more about instilling a mindset in them where it's less about, if you guys do the real estate thing, great, but as long as you understand how to take $1 and turn it into $2 and how to invest in yourself and be the kind of person that's going to help to establish financial freedom for you and the people around you, that's what the real work is about. What would you say it is for you guys?
It's more so for me about the mindset. Mindset 100%, because once you get that mindset down, they will see that value in the family business later, right? If they never understand the importance of being financial financially literate, right? And understanding financing and how it works, then they're not going to see a value in anything we do and anything that we're going to leave them anyway. It's just going to be like, yo, I just need the money. So whoever can give me $250, you can take this $1.2 million property. If you can just give me $250,000, that's what I need right now. My oldest son wants to start a clothing brand. So guess what? We're going to start a clothing brand. We're going to indulge in anything that they want to do. That is our job as parents, because I know my mother did that for me. I went through 50 different entrepreneurial endeavors, and she was there to support me through every single one until I found exactly what it is I wanted. Real estate is not my dream. That is my husband's dream. But when I met him, he said, listen, if we do this real estate thing first, then we could take the money from there and invest in your dream. My dream is family entertainment centers. So that's what we did. We took real estate, and then we took the money from one of our flips and bought a Sky Zone franchise. For my kids, it's no different. What is it that you are passionate about? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Because we can always hire someone to run the family business, and you guys can oversee that.
So for us, it's about options and passion. What are you truly passionate about? What lights you up? And I believe everybody in this world should be free to pursue their passions. But I also realize we don't live in a utopia, so you need some type of finances or freedom to be able to do that. So that's why we work so hard, is so that our kids don't have to take a job if they're not passionate about it. Right now, they're gonna work. They're gonna learn the value of hard work. But we want them to have options where they can truly pursue what lights them up. And that's why we teach real estate. That's why we teach investing, because that's what got us free from being beholden to other people and gave us freedom. So that's why we're so passionate about teaching this to other people.
One of the things we talked about off camera that I wanted to bring on camera, we've even talked about it a bit on here. You know, I'm sure as you guys speak all across the country and as the brand has grown, whether it's in person or through DMs, you probably run into a lot of male or female entrepreneurs that are single, right? And they're like, I want what you guys got. Like, how do I find my Dedric? How do I find my crystal? Like, what does that process look like? What is the counsel that you normally provide to these individuals on how to do it right?
I would say we do get that a lot, everywhere. And I tell people the best advice I can give them is to start how you want to finish. So be very intentional when dating. And when I say start how you want to finish, it is start having those conversations in the very beginning when you meet someone that you typically would not have until a year or 2 years in, because that's what we're conditioned to do.
Or you might be uncomfortable to ask them those hard questions early, but force yourself to have those hard questions.
Yes.
Hard conversations early.
Set the tone early, right? If you don't get that, I'm a very no-nonsense type woman, right? I don't like to play games unless I am playing a game. I do love to have fun, but there's a time and a place. So when I'm meeting someone, I tell these young couples, and so many come up to us and be like, oh, well, this is my boyfriend, and we just got into this whole real estate thing, and I'm bringing him along on the journey. And I ask them, is it your journey or is it both of you's journey? Because that's going to dictate how long he's going to stay around.
Come on.
For Dedric, this was his dream. Is he willing to support you and be a part of this? Or is he just like, go ahead now, you do your thing, mama. Call me if you need me. Like,
and that's okay too, because not everybody is into the same thing, has the same interests.
But you have to learn that early, right? And understand, hey, listen, okay, we're together and we're doing this. I understood this was his dream, his passion. I was 10 toes in with him. Okay. But what we did was he didn't tell me, hey, okay, well, I need you to do this, 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 and this. Because then y'all wouldn't be sitting here speaking to us. Okay. Because my mind don't work that way. I have to do and take on an area in the business that I know I can excel at, right? And so what we did was within that mastermind, we got all the roles for this job, for this business. And we were allowed to say, okay, this is what I'm good at. I can do this, 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 and this. So I always tell young couples, find out, is this a journey one, find out if you have an opponent, or what is it? You need to find out if you have
somebody that's on your team or that's the ops.
Yeah, it's what is it? A teammate or an opponent.
Okay.
In your relationship.
And it's okay. Both don't have to be entrepreneurs. That's rare that two entrepreneurs get together. One should probably keep a 9-to-5 job, a W-2, for the stability of that. Right? I see that work a lot where it's like, hey,
what you're looking
my
for.
wife has a W-2. She's a nurse. She does this. Yep. That's the stability that we use to pay the mortgage. Then I can take more risk over here in the entrepreneurial realm. That's okay too.
Yes. You just have to make sure you are on the same team.
Mindset-wise.
Right? And understand, you got to start how you want to finish, because so many couples come in front of us, and we've had a man come up to us before, and he was like, hey, I just wanted to ask y'all, I flew all the way here and to meet y'all, because I know y'all don't really, do a lot of speaking engagements, and you're real particular. And I said, I ain't going to see them again for a while. I just really wanted to ask you guys, should I divorce my wife?
Hey, yo. That's how you came all the way over here?
Did he?
Yeah.
He was a doctor.
Wow.
And he asked us, should I divorce my wife? And I was like,
that's a heavy question.
Yeah, like.
Wait, what happened? Like, what did she do to you?
Yeah.
But it was because he was wanting to get into real estate. He's a doctor by day. And he's really wanting, his passion is to get into real estate. She's not supporting that at all. And then I had to have a conversation with him and help him understand why she would possibly not support it. They never had these conversations before. Right? You are 40-some years old, and now you popped up and say, look, baby, I want to take us from making, $1.2 million a year to possibly making $2 million a year, like $1,000 a year. Right? And I tell people, like, real estate is a very cyclical business. Like, you can close the deal today and not for the next 6 months. Like, it's not always unicorns and rainbows. And he was all in. And she was like, absolutely not. So he was like, should I just go ahead and divorce her because I want someone like your wife? And I said, well, you would have had to find her in the beginning. That's not who you found. So it doesn't mean you give up on her. You guys have to come to a common ground, right? So that you can both live out your passions and she don't feel like she's going to the poorhouse. So I think for young couples who are just getting started in this, start how you want to finish. Right? When you are dating, date with intentions, right? If you know you want to move to LA and get into film, don't meet a guy who wants to stay in Brooklyn and
talk about those goals.
And is comfortable working at the post office.
Yeah, be honest with what you want to do.
Absolutely.
So there's no surprises later.
Yes.
How when you're speaking with these younger couples, how important is a level of self-awareness when you're navigating the dating journey? And the reason why I ask that, for me, myself as an entrepreneur, I think my dating life became successful when I started becoming more aware about who I am. And it just made it a lot easier for me to find somebody that aligned with that, right? So like when I started doing a lot of the personal work on myself to start, before I started like dating a lot more seriously and I wasn't going into the gym and I wasn't serious about my money and beyond, it was so confusing to me. Like, why am I getting all these women, all these, for lack of a better term, like these not so productive women that aren't
head cases.
There you
Go
go.
ahead and say it.
And it's like, it wasn't until I started doing the work on myself and I started going to the gym, I was more involved in the church, I started taking my business seriously, I'm budgeting, I'm doing all these different things. I'm like, it's interesting because now like the options are a lot more fruitful. And I think for a lot of individuals, there might be a lack of self-awareness to where it's just like, you have entrepreneurs or people who are navigating the space and just like, man, the dating pool is trash. And it's just like, well, it might be a reflection of you.
There you go.
My kind sir, my kind madam.
Yes.
Is that also part of those conversations that you're having?
You're exactly
Absolutely.
right. You attract who you are.
Yeah.
Yep.
You attract who you are with it.
Sorry, that's
You
my
good.
kid's school.
Yeah.
So no, you attract who you are. Whatever you're putting out into the universe, positive, negative, high frequency, low frequency, whatever it is, and we all operate on different variations of these levels at different times. That's what you attract.
Yeah. So now, with the amount of success that you've gotten to this point, what would you guys say? What's your North Star? Like at this point, you've built this robust portfolio. You have this strong brand. Your kids are taken care of. You have the financial freedom, the time freedom. What is the thing that you're working towards at this point?
To keep going.
Mm.
So at this point, for me, everything is still centered around our children. So they are 7 and 11. I like to tell people you get 18 summers with them.
Mm.
And the reason why I say 18 summers is because after that, they get to college. There ain't no guarantee they coming home every summer after that, right? Because I know I did.
Yeah.
You know, like they traveling, they with their friend, college, they ain't coming home for the holidays like they want. So we have 18 summers with them to be able to really build and bond with them and to really mold them.
Mhm.
And within those 18 summers for me as a mom, I will be fully transparent. I done told my husband wherever they go to college, we moving. So, and I didn't promise my sons, I said, look, I ain't gonna be on campus, but
I ain't gonna be off campus.
like put me in the vicinity.
Yeah.
But for me, it's really about building and bonding even more with our sons while we still have them young. And I was a parent who I was intentional about when I had them, right? I said, I don't want to have kids before I'm 30. I want to be able to enjoy them. Now I enjoy every minute. I enjoy waking up. I enjoy the cooking and cleaning, and I enjoy being a mom. I love every aspect of it. So it really just makes me want to build more. So for me, it is I want franchises. I want to build like we did in real estate. I want to now do it on the franchise side, right? So I want a chain of FECs, Family Entertainment Centers. So for me, it's more about 10, 15, 20 different franchises or FECs, Family Entertainment Centers that I want. And that's just another avenue for me. Then I also want to get possibly back into, we just started our own production company. So real cute name too, Pump 6 Productions.
Pump 6 Productions. Okay.
Where we got that name from?
The gas station.
You see that just hit his head to break.
I'm like, okay. Go ahead.
Yep, that's the name of our production company. So why? Because when you have the network's attention, you utilize that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for us, I want to get back into producing and directing. So we started our production company where we already have like 2 shows that we are in the process of doing. So that is really what's next for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I look at entrepreneurship as a journey. So, I mean, I feel like, people are, oh, you guys are so successful, you've made it. I don't feel like we've made it yet. This is like just early second inning of a 9-inning ball game for us. Like we're just getting started. There's so much more we want to do in real estate. I see our portfolio being in the thousands of doors, millions of square feet of property that we own. In the education space, I want us to be able to touch millions of people with information on how to empower your family by investing in real estate. And then also help my wife, achieve her goals of owning multiple dozens of the trampoline parks and the franchises. So it's just the beginning for us.
I love it. As we start to close, what is one piece of wisdom that has taken the both of you the furthest in your journeys individually that you could share with the audience?
I would say for me, it's putting God first. I think He's the source of all our success. We've been successful beyond my wildest dreams. I never thought we'd be on national TV, which has been huge. And I find that the more that we tithe and give, the more He blesses us. So that's the source of everything for me.
And for yourself?
Great question. Best advice I was given that I think that I use every day in my life is actually 2. Start how you want to finish. I was told that in college, and I've lived my life. Dedric heard it probably on our first date. I've lived that and preached that my whole life because I've been very intentional with how I spend my time and who I spend my time with. And Dedric can tell you, our first date, we went bowling and I said, whatever time it was, 6 o'clock or something, I said, I don't believe in being late. So you can come early, but if you come late, I won't be there.
That's why we was early today.
Yeah.
Out here in the rain.
And he understood that. And he knew I meant I was for real.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that. My mother will tell anyone, only person she won't leave is me. And that's because I had her and she know better. But I'm very intentional with my time.
Yeah.
So I tell people, start everything in life. Business, school. Like I tell my sons, every day, first day of school, you start off with an A. How long you keep it is up to you. But you start off with an A. So starting how you want to finish. Start teaching people how to treat you. Don't let them treat you away and then go back behind them and be like, well, no, I didn't like that. I'm telling you day one, don't play with me like that. Don't ask me to drink something when you know I don't drink. You get one chance for me to have to correct you. And then you're no longer in my space. I'm very intentional. So start how you want to finish.
That part.
And then the second thing is you make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give. I read that my senior year in high school in a book. I can't remember who said it, who quoted it. But you make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give. I probably have one of the biggest hearts out of anyone.
People say that's why she's so tough. She has
is.
a huge heart. She would give away everything.
Everything.
If I let her, I'm
Yep.
like, hey, listen, we need some.
He have to remind me, like, babe, we can't trade.
We can't tie the 100%. We
Yeah.
can give the 10%.
Like, look, we can't trade places with them.
Yeah.
Now.
Huge giver.
But that's how I live my life. I'm measured by how much I can give to someone else in my mind. How much can I do for someone else? How much can I bless someone else? How much can I be a blessing to someone else? How much can we help someone else? That is how I measure up in my life. That's how I press upon my children, right? You are blessed. Now you must be a blessing to someone else. So I make them understand that saying. You make a life by what you get. You make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give. So teaching them and living those principles is really what gets me through even the tough times. When we didn't have it and didn't have it to give, I knew the power and the blessing you get by giving, even when you don't have it, right? And even when it came to my husband, teaching him that mindset, he'll come and be like, babe, nah, we can't afford that. And I had him stop saying that. I said, listen, don't ever say we can't afford anything or we won't be able to. Say, how can we afford it, right? How can we be a blessing to someone else, even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of at the time where we may not have it? My sons asked me one day, why do I always give to a homeless person on the street? I said, because you never know when your blessing might be behind that giving.
Yeah.
And I said, never block your blessing. I don't care if it's 50 cents. If you have it,
give it.
Give it.
Yeah.
And now, every time we drive down the street, what do they do if they see a homeless person?
Okay.
Mommy, I got $1 back here. Can we stop?
They're
Mommy,
like jumping over each other.
To give. Mommy, I have $5 here left over. Can I give it to them? Can I give it to him? So to me, I think those are two of the best principles that I've learned and was taught to me.
I love that. Listen, this was probably my favorite conversation I've ever done on the podcast, like ever.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm not just saying that because you guys are here, but this was so insightful, from business to relationships to marriage. If my lady's watching, we gotta have a conversation. we got a lot to talk about.
We got a conversation.
Listen, I know we gotta get you guys out of here. Before we do, whether it's this camera or this camera, let the people know where they can find you and what you got going on.
Yes. So you can follow us on all things Be Polite Properties. Be Polite Properties on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, the TikToks. I think that's what they call it now.
The TikToks.
We also have a book. We have a book. It's called The Ultimate Wholesaling Book. You can pick that up. We'll put it in the show notes. It's actually the Ultimate Wholesaling Kit. So it's a book. There's a marketing playbook that goes with it that shows you how to find motivated seller leads. And there's a calculator, a cash offer calculator. So make sure you pick that up. And we appreciate you having us, Marvin.
Most definitely.
Yes, this is
Awesome
fun.
conversation.
Of course. I appreciate you guys. And listen, I appreciate you guys as well. And if you haven't already, what are you doing? Take a second, take a minute, take an hour out of your day right here, right now to go ahead, hit that like button and show this episode some love. Tell a friend to come back and rewatch it again. As always, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Marvin Francois. That's Dedric and Crystal Polite. You guys have been good. We've been great. This has been amazing. Thank you all and God bless. Peace.